Richard Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong, known for their raunchy and irreverent humor, epitomized the counterculture of the early 1970s with a level of authenticity that few comedy acts could match. Alongside comedy legends like George Carlin and Richard Pryor, Cheech and Chong used their over-the-top comedy and seemingly lowbrow antics to satirize the shift from idealism to escapism in the post-hippie era, focusing on themes of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Through their live performances filled with outrageous skits and characters, they fearlessly tackled controversial topics ranging from race and politics to the Vietnam War. In 1971, the duo released their debut record, introducing iconic characters like DJ Wink Dinkerson and the perpetually high Pedro and Man. The self-titled album was well received by both critics and fans, establishing Cheech and Chong as comedy favorites. Their catchphrase "Dave's not here, man" became a cultural phenomenon, and they went on to release a series of successful, Grammy-nominated albums. Transitioning to the big screen as the 70s came to a close, Cheech and Chong adapted their popular sketches into the film Up in Smoke in 1978, showcasing their Pedro and Man personas in a loosely structured narrative. This movie solidified their status as the comedic duo equivalent of Bob Hope and Bing Crosby in the stoner genre. Although they continued to make more films, their partnership eventually dissolved in the mid-80s due to conflicting personalities, leading to a bitter breakup that lasted nearly 20 years. This is the untold truth of Cheech and Chong. Richard Anthony Cheech Marin was born on July 13, 1946, in south-central Los Angeles. His father, Oscar Marin, was an officer with the LAPD. Marin's mother, Elsa, worked as a secretary. He was given the nickname Cheech by an uncle who humorously compared him to a chicharron, a fried pork rind. As a young boy, Marin relocated with his family to the LA suburb of Granada Hills, where he attended a Catholic high school. Cheech, who served as an altar boy, had a passion for music and played in bands with his peers. Despite being an excellent student, Marin was known for his mischievous antics, often finding himself in trouble. Reflecting on his youth, Marin admitted, "I was a handful. I was always causing trouble. I wasn't mean-spirited, I just couldn't keep quiet." Following his high school graduation, Marin enrolled at California State University, Northridge. It was during his college years that he experimented with marijuana for the first time. This experience led Marin to question the misinformation he had been fed about the drug, prompting him to wonder, what else have they been deceiving me about? While at university, Marin became involved in anti-war and draft resistance movements. Faced with the imprisonment of draft resistors, Marin sought refuge in Canada with the assistance of his pottery instructor. Embracing a simpler lifestyle, Marin worked as an apprentice to a renowned potter and settled in a remote log cabin in the Canadian wilderness. Thomas B. Kin Chong was raised in Calgary, Alberta, Canada by his parents Stanley Chong and Lorna Jean Chong. His father, a Chinese immigrant, worked as a truck driver, while his mother, a Canadian waitress. Growing up in an interracial family, Chong experienced firsthand the harsh realities of racism. In a recent interview with The Guardian in 2020, the comedian candidly discussed his childhood in the conservative city of Calgary. He recounted a painful memory of being excluded from a friend's birthday party simply because the girl's father was concerned about her associating with a Chinese individual. Chong vividly remembers looking out of the second-story window, watching his friends gather around a fire while he was left out. At the age of 16, Chong made the decision to drop out of high school in order to pursue a career in music. With his exceptional guitar skills, he joined a multiracial soul group called The Shades, based in Calgary. Eventually, the band changed their name to Little Daddy and the Bachelors and relocated to Vancouver. They gained a small but dedicated following after releasing a single. However, their breakthrough came when they caught the attention of Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, through a recommendation from Diana Ross and the Supremes. The band was signed to Motown and recorded the hit song Does Your Mama Know About Me, which was co-written by Chong and Bobby Taylor. This heartfelt ballad, depicting an interracial couple, reached number 29 on the Billboard Hot 100 and achieved a top 5 position on the R&B charts. After being terminated from his band, Tommy Chong received a severance check of $5,000 and returned to Vancouver. During his journey, his parents transformed one of his owned night spots into Vancouver's inaugural topless club, known as the Shanghai Junk. This establishment would eventually become the focal point of Chong's creative endeavors. Accompanying Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers on their travels, Chong had the opportunity to witness the comedic brilliance of Chicago's Second City. This exposure reignited his passion for improvisation, and the Shanghai Junk provided the ideal setting for him to refine his comedic skills. With the recruitment of 4 topless dancers, a mime, and a classical guitarist, Tommy Chong aimed to revolutionize burlesque for the hippie generation. Meanwhile, Richard Murrin had relocated to Vancouver and secured a part-time writing position at Popping, a local music magazine. Murrin's editor suggested that he meet with this individual who runs an improvisational theater group within a topless bar situated in the most unfavorable part of Chinatown. The unorthodox duo hit it off, and Murrin was brought on board as a writer. According to Tommy Chong's book, Cheech and Chong, the unauthorized autobiography, the duo's renowned act came about unexpectedly. Chong and his newly formed musical group were scheduled to perform their inaugural show. However, to warm up the audience beforehand, Tommy Chong and Richard Murrin took the stage to share some jokes. The crowd was in stitches as one hilarious bit seamlessly transitioned into another. The act continued for such an extended period that there was no time left for the band to perform. Tommy Chong provided a detailed account of how an enthusiastic Cheech and Chong made their way to Los Angeles, known as the comedy capital of the world. Through Chong's connections in the entertainment industry, the duo secured a spot at an open mic night at Red Fox's Comedy Club. Despite their financial struggles, they had to move in with Cheng's estranged wife, leading to an increasingly difficult living situation. The situation worsened when Chong's nightclubs in Vancouver closed due to declining profits, leaving the comic without any income. Gradually, Cheech and Chong started performing regularly at various clubs in Southern California. Following a disappointing show at the Irma Hotel, they realized they needed to change their approach. Drawing inspiration from the peace, love, and dope culture of the time, they developed their Pedro and Man characters, which resonated with the audience. Their success led to sold-out shows, better venues, and a record deal after music producer Lou Adler discovered them at the Troubadour in LA. With limited resources, Cheech and Chong created their first comedy album at A&M Records, showcasing their humor, impeccable timing, and exceptional voice work. The self-titled album was released in August 1971, receiving positive reviews and reaching 28 on the Billboard charts. It also earned the duo their first Grammy nomination for Best Comedy Recording, marking the beginning of a successful career in comedy. Cheech and Chong continued their film career after Up in Smoke with Cheech and Chong's next movie in 1980 and Nice Dreams in 1981. While these movies maintained their signature drug humor, they did not reach the same level of success as their debut film. Despite this, they still contained classic Cheech and Chong moments and managed to turn a profit with their modest budgets. Their next movie, Things Are Tough All Over, released in 1982, showcased a shift towards a more story-driven comedy, with Cheech and Chong temporarily setting aside their iconic spliffs. The following year, Still Smoking was released, featuring a mix of sketches and concert footage as the duo found themselves in Amsterdam for a film festival. Although critics were critical of their work, fans continued to support Cheech and Chong's irreverent humor. However, their next project, The Corsican Brothers in 1984, marked a significant departure from their usual style. This spoof of Alexandre Dumas' classic tale received negative reviews and failed to attract audiences, ultimately becoming their final feature film. In 1985, Cheech and Chong released the album and home video Get Out of My Room. It would be the duo's final release before their acrimonious split. After nearly 2 decades, ego and creative differences dating back to at least 1981's Nice Dreams had soured their friendship. Although Cheech and Chong had soldiered on through their differences, never allowing their animosity toward each other to affect their working relationship, tensions between the two became unbearable. There was always a contentious conversation between Tommy and I because we were very strong personalities, but it was the irritant that produced the pearl, Richard Murrin related to talks at Google. Nevertheless, Murrin insists that the cause of the breakup came down to Tommy Chong's inflated ego. As we went along and got more success, Tommy wanted to be everything, Murrin says. He wanted to be the director and the sole writer. That tension kept building until he didn't want me to write anymore. Chong's refusal to participate in the recording of the song Born in East LA was the final straw for Murrin. Decades later, a humbler Tommy Chong agrees with his partner's assessment of their breakup. I was really, really hurt, although it was probably my fault, Chong told All Out Show's Judon Galini in 2017. I got to be a bit of a megalomaniac when it came to the movies. Once you become a director, your word's God, and it's hard to lose that. Since 2003, there have been ongoing efforts to bring together Cheech and Chong for a reunion. The famous comedy duo had plans for a new movie, but unfortunately, those plans were derailed when Chong faced legal trouble for his involvement in the marketing and promotion of drug paraphernalia. However, much to the delight of their devoted fans, Cheech and Chong finally reunited in 2008 for a nationwide comedy tour. When they took the stage together after 25 years, Cheech and Chong discovered that their old magic was still intact, and their chemistry was as vibrant as ever. In an interview with NPR, Cheech Murrin revealed that they didn't even need to rehearse extensively before their comeback. They simply discussed their plans and then went on stage to perform. It felt as if they had only been apart for 25 seconds, not 25 years. More than a decade into their reunion, Cheech and Chong continue to draw large crowds to their sold-out live shows. Despite being in their 70s and 80s, respectively, they are still going strong and entertaining audiences in the 21st century. Richard Cheech Murrin and Tommy Chong have been steadfast collaborators on numerous records and in a variety of movies, creating a lasting bond between them. Their connection was established through shared interests in work and marijuana. As reported by the Los Angeles Times, they first met in the late 60s in Vancouver and spent time together at Chong's Improved Theatre, where they would smoke and develop comedy routines. Despite their amicable and friendly relationship, it was never truly a friendship. In an interview with the Bucks County Courier-Times in 2018, Chong stated, "We were never friends. We got along but we were never pals." He went on to explain that their professional partnership was successful, but they eventually went their separate ways in 1986. Chong believed that their decision to part was wise, as it prevented them from experiencing the animosity seen in other comedy duos like Abbott and Costello or Martin and Lewis. Chong mentioned that they both pursued solo projects, which they mutually respected.